Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on Draganfly Inc. That's NASDAQ ticker DPRO.
Right. And, it's probably not a name most listeners immediately recognize.
Exactly. Not like the giants, the Lockheeds, the Boeings that really defined aerospace and defense for, well, decades.
Yeah, they absolutely shaped the 20th century. But things are definitely evolving now, aren't they?
They really are. We're in this different environment now. Tighter defense budgets, for one.
Hmm. And this huge push towards AI and, well, everything strategic.
Right, and leaner military operations overall. It sort of feels like this opens the door, maybe, for smaller, more agile companies.
That's the idea. A real potential for these nimbler players to step up and become quite significant.
So think of this as our quick but thorough look at one of these potential disruptors. Our mission today.
Is really to get under the hood, right?
Yeah.
Pull out the key insights on Draganfly from what we've analyzed, understand why this company might be positioned so interestingly right now.
And we should mention up front, the stock's currently trading under $3.
Yeah, and our source material does suggest analysts see some pretty significant potential upside from that level.
Okay, let's dig in then. First thing that jumps out is this phrase, budget reallocation tailwind. Can you unpack that a bit? How does shifting defense money actually help a company like Draganfly?
Well, it's about priorities, fundamentally. We're seeing less focus solely on those massive traditional platforms, the huge jets, the carriers.
The multi-billion-dollar project.
Exactly. And more investment flowing towards modular systems, AI-driven intelligence tools, things that deliver critical data, critical capabilities. But without that, frankly, enormous price tag.
And Draganfly fits in there because their focus is...
Micro-drone platforms, that's their wheelhouse. These smaller, adaptable aerial systems.
So as the money shifts.
They're potentially right in the sweet spot. Increased demand, more procurement opportunities for these kinds of agile, cost-effective systems. It's about, getting smarter bang for the buck, tactically speaking.
Got it. And the source is pretty clear. Draganfly isn't like just churning out generic drones. It really emphasizes their focus is AI-powered systems specifically for public safety, defense, infrastructure resilience.
That's crucial. They're not just building hardware, they're building integrated intelligence systems for specific critical jobs.
So what does that look like practically? Any examples of where they're actually being used now?
Oh, yeah. The source gives some really concrete examples. Landmine mapping, for instance.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, using their aerial systems to cover dangerous ground way more safely and quickly than, traditional methods. Also, infrastructure surveillance.
Like bridges, power lines, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And they've integrated LiDAR, that's light detection and ranging tech, through a partnership with a company called Balco Technologies. That gives them really precise 3D mapping capabilities.
Okay, so highly detailed inspection data.
Precisely. And they're also being used in law enforcement applications. The main point the source stresses is these aren't just test flights or prototypes.
These are active deployments.
Active deployments. They're out there working right now.
Yeah, it seems like the potential use cases are pretty broad, too. Military ops, demining, border security, helping first responders, disaster relief.
Absolutely. And the common thread seems to be that cost efficiency compared to legacy approaches. How do you get that advanced aerial intel without breaking the bank? Draganfly seems to be offering an answer.
Okay, so the tech and its application makes sense in this new environment. What about the company itself? The source mentions high-impact partnerships.
Right, and leadership, too. Both seem pretty significant.
Let's take partnerships first. Anything specific stand out?
Well, there's a multi-year contract with SafeLane Global. They're a big name in demining and related services.
Okay, so that landmine mapping application isn't just a one-off project. It's a sustained engagement.
Exactly. It suggests trust and reliability in a really critical field. And then there's that Balco Technologies integration for LiDAR we mentioned. It shows they're not trying to do everything themselves. They're collaborating to bring in best-in-class tech.
That makes sense. These aren't just tech demos. They're business relationships focused on delivering real capability.
That's the key takeaway, I think. It's real-world validation. These organizations are actively choosing Draganfly's solutions. Now, tie that to the leadership.
Yeah, that definitely caught my eye. Former acting U.S. Secretary of Defense Chris Miller on the board.
Pretty high level. And Paul Goldenberg chaired their Public Safety Advisory Board.
And his background is extensive, right? Law enforcement, national security.
Over 30 years, he was even named America's most influential person in Homeland Security at one point.
Wow. So he brings that deep understanding of what's actually needed on the ground tactically.
Precisely. It's about making sure the tech aligns with real operational demand. It's not just a famous name, it's relevant expertise.
And Chris Miller, with his Pentagon background, he presumably understands the defense priorities, the funding streams, the whole contracting maze.
You'd have to think so. Having that kind of insight into how Washington works, especially in defense procurement, seems incredibly valuable for a company like this.
Okay, so strong tech, real applications, key partnerships, experienced leadership. Let's pivot slightly to the financials and maybe the future outlook.
Sure. The source highlights one potentially very interesting metric.
The EPS forecast.
Yeah, earnings per share. It points to a potential 85% improvement projected between 2025 and 2026.
That's quite a jump. 85%.
It is. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, as these partnerships really start to scale and their solutions get wider adoption, we could see some positive earnings surprises coming up.
An inflection point, perhaps. Now, the source also mentions revenue was down year over year in 2023.
It did. But interestingly, in the same breath, it highlighted a 160% surge in gross profit.
Okay, wait. Revenue down, but gross profit way up. How does that work?
Well, it usually points to a couple of things. One, becoming much more efficient operationally, cutting costs, streamlining.
Leaner operations.
Exactly. And two, it strongly suggests they're successfully focusing on the higher margin parts of their business, selling more of the profitable stuff, basically, which is generally a good sign for long-term health.
Right, focusing on profitability, not just top-line revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we pull all these threads together, the shifting defense needs, Draganfly's AI focus, the real-world uses, the partnerships, the leadership, the improving profit picture. What's the core argument here? The source sums it up nicely.
Yeah, it presents Draganfly as potentially becoming the tactical backbone of tomorrow's defense infrastructure. Kind of a bold claim, but they back it up.
How so?
Yeah.
What are the pillars of that argument?
First is the AI-driven tactical advantage. It's about their autonomous flight capabilities, the advanced sensors, stuff that's field-ready now for defense, law enforcement, infrastructure. It's not science fiction.
Okay, real innovation deployed.
Second, being built for the budget-conscious Pentagon. We talked about this. In today's world, low-cost, high-impact tools are essential. They fit that mold.
Makes sense.
Under the radar, asymmetric opportunity. Basically the idea that with the stock under $3, but with this experience, leadership, and potential, the risk-reward profile looks interesting, especially compared to the giant defense contractors.
An undiscovered gem, potentially.
That's the implication. And finally, deployed plus defensible. They're not just theoretical, they're in actual missions, guided by defense pros, solving real problems. It's proven, practical stuff.
It really is a stark contrast when you think about the Boeings of the world focusing on these massive, complex, long lead time aircraft.
Exactly. Draganfly is dealing in agile, adaptable drones, small enough to carry easily, powerful enough to deliver critical intelligence.
And the speed must be different, too.
Yeah.
The development cycles for legacy contractors are years, decades sometimes.
Huge difference. Draganfly seems much leaner, faster, focused on that data-driven intelligence you can get now.
And it sounds like their strategy is winning these smaller, focused contracts and really delivering on them.
Yeah, building credibility, demonstrating execution. They're carving out a really vital niche, it seems, not necessarily going head-to-head for the mega deals, but providing essential, affordable capabilities.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive on Draganfly, DPRO. The picture that emerges is one of a company potentially right at the center of a major shift in defense tech.
It really feels that way. Offering these autonomous, low-cost aerial intelligence systems seems perfectly aligned with where things are heading: modern threats, modern budgets.
You've got this convergence, right? The strategic contracts showing real value.
The very experienced defense and security leadership providing guidance.
And just the sheer momentum of AI innovation underpinning it all.
It all seems to be coming together for them, potentially.
It definitely leaves you wondering, as this need for cost-effective, adaptable intelligence just keeps growing, where do companies like Draganfly fit in the long run?
Could they become, fundamental building blocks of future defense and public safety strategies, maybe part of this new defense economy that people are starting to talk about?
Interesting thought. Are they getting in on the ground floor before everyone else catches on?
It's certainly provocative how that need for agility and affordability reshapes the whole defense world and the role of companies focused on AI hardware. Definitely something to keep an eye on.